Hello, welcome back to the Evergreen RX. I'm your host, Hayden, licensed mental health therapist, Cancer Moon, and the first to get deep at any party. We've been over this already. I don't usually go to a lot of parties, but if I do, I will want to talk real talk. And I might not always bring it up because I feel like other people might not want that, but in my heart of hearts, that's what I want. I want to talk the real shit. Okay, I'm off to a weird start. Well, hello guys. I'm very excited about today's episode. Like, genuinely really resonating with the listener question for today. If you saw in the title, whatever it ends up being, I don't know until after the fact, but probably something about backsliding and like wanting to take a break from like your healing journey and working on yourself, self-growth, all that stuff. Oh, and it just really resonates with me. And it's interesting because, like, just gotta be real, I brainstormed for this episode like a week ago, and in the subsequent week since then, I thought about it a lot, and it's kind of like it's brought up a lot of interesting stuff for me about healing and kind of what's possible, what like the goal even is. And this is tough from both the therapist perspective and from being the client, like kind of breaking some of the illusions about like, you know, what we're aiming for. Like, is it this point of being fully healed that then you can kind of like take a break and actually just enjoy your life? Or like, how do we know when to, you know, really be more in the grind on working on ourselves versus just kind of living life, and how to balance those things? And, you know, which you'll see this as I get into it, but like where my stance is that there's not really any end point. There's not a, it's not possible to get to fully healed. And there's certain things in our life that we might struggle with for our entire life, even when we're working on it actively, which is really crazy to me. And kind of, if I think about it too hard, it can start to throw in to question like the field that I work in, and like, oh my God, if it's basically like a doctor telling you have a terminal illness, but like you'll live a long time, but it's just like, it's terminal. And it's, you might like, it'll get better, but it'll also like rear its head sometimes and feel just kind of as bad as it did at the beginning. Like, I don't know. I think I'm maybe losing the metaphor a little bit, but it is just kind of interesting that we work on ourselves to ideally like not get triggered in the same way that we did, or, you know, not be overwhelmed by emotion sometimes, or to be able to handle like anger better than our family did or whatever. And I think those things genuinely improve with time. I really do. And I really do think there are some things that we can heal from and just release. But overall, you're not going to like completely just like neuter yourself and become like a perfect, non-reactive, non-defensive, like Buddha type person. You know, I don't know, I guess unless you are a Buddha. But anyway, this is a really rambly beginning. But yeah, let's just jump into the question, and then hopefully all these things will start to come together. All right. It says, Dear Evergreen, I've been on a big healing journey. Therapy, journaling, astrology, all of it. I love that astrology is included in there as part of the healing, which totally. But lately I feel exhausted by how much work it takes to feel okay. I miss when life felt simple. Is it normal to get burnt out on your own self-growth? And how do you take a break from healing without backsliding? Yeah, so as I was saying, yes, it's normal to get burnt out on it. Yes, I hear you on, you know, it being a lot of work to feel okay. It's kind of like opening Pandora's box. Like, I see why some people don't go to therapy ever. Like, especially when they're like kind of got a lot of entrenched shit going on. Leave that door closed. Okay, I mean, I'm not being like totally serious, but also like, I don't know. I don't think it's everybody's path in life to like totally heal their shit. And so if not, just like leave the door closed, because when you're in that like middle space of like, I'm starting to open up, I'm starting to like look into Pandora's freaky little box, but I'm not, I still have a lot ahead of me, and like I haven't really seen a lot of gains from that. It's super uncomfortable, and it's really like hard. And when you haven't opened that box yet, you can kind of live in like an ignorant bliss a little bit. Sure, you're not as like connected to yourself, and you probably have some unhealthy coping mechanism and things, and maybe it's hard to feel like totally satisfied in relationships, like sure, but you might not be like conscious to a lot of that stuff. So I feel you guys listening probably understand, being in the camp of conscious to it and still doing it is really uncomfortable. So anyway, like I'm going on lots of tangents, but yeah, it does take a lot of work. And as someone that has been in therapy pretty consistently for the past 10 years, I'm probably the best/worst person to talk to about this. Clearly, I'm very invested in doing this work, but also sometimes I want to throw my phone off of a bridge, and I want to burn all my self-help books, and I want to just stop being inundated with mental health and all the jargon and all the different perspectives and theories, and like, guess what? If you do this thing, that's because of your inner child wounds and what. Sometimes I don't want to hear it at all. Yeah, it's a double-edged sword, because healing and self-growth can become a way that we forget what we're doing it for, and we just kind of get addicted to getting to the bottom of things, to being healed. And the more we look, the more problems we find. It's like when you're cleaning. I was cleaning my house yesterday, so it's top of mind. When you're just like going on your day to day and you're just living, you're not like gonna notice all the like dirt and the grime in the little corners and all the like dust on the baseboards and the blinds and things, like all these little places. But then when you start cleaning, you really start looking. Then you're like, oh my God, the blinds are filthy and there's cobwebs underneath my bookshelf. And the pantry is super disorganized. And, like it just starts to build because you're looking now. And you're like, oh, everything. The paint's chipping. There's cracks in the walls. Like, you really start to notice. And you're like, damn, I kind of wish I could go back to when I was just like living in here and not looking at all this. Because now I got a lot more work cut out for me than when I just decided, oh, the floor is a little dirty, I'm going to do some sweeping. It always starts with something really simple, and then it devolves. But yeah, so that's the same kind of thing that can happen here. It just, we start to notice more and more, and then we're like, oh, I gotta work on that, I gotta work on this, like. And it's funny for me to talk about this on a mental health podcast, because like it's kind of like my whole thing is looking into this stuff more deeply and like continuing to grow. But also, as I hope I have touched on this, and I will continue to touch on this in the future, is that we have to come back to reality, and that there's more to life than just working on yourself. There's a lot more to life. There's a lot of living to be done instead of navel gazing, because when we're working on ourselves, we have to have like a really, internal view. It's like we've turned our gaze back inside of ourselves. And you can't stay there all the time, because that's just not life, but it would be very imbalanced. And I think one of the ways we can look at this is by expanding our definition of healing. Expanding it to include things like pleasure and fun and excitement and play and joy, and, not just depth and difficulty and discomfort that pushes you to grow. But that all of those other things are important. All of the fun and just carefree enjoyment in life. Also think that there's value in throwing that metric healing out altogether. Because sometimes it's like, yes, expand it. look at how joy is a part of healing as well. But also throwing out the metric of like, I need to be healing all the time. Because if I'm any example, you can do a lot of personal work. It's basically been my personality for a decade, because not only have I done a lot of therapy, but then I studied it and it's my job, and I'm constantly thinking about how we improve ourselves and, we better our lives. And I've done this all from a young age where like I, didn't have as much stuff like really baked in as if I was, 50 approaching all of this for the first time. And I still struggle with human existence. And kind of what I was referring to earlier, and what's really been on my mind in the week since preparing for this episode, that this question, it's brought me some comfort, but also some discomfort in myself, which is that after every book and training and class and therapy session and supervision and meditation and journal entry and prayer and everything I have done, I still have very hard days. And I still get triggered, and I still argue unfairly, and I speak from my defenses, and I get caught up in my own shit, and I judge myself, and I wake up on the wrong side of the bed, and I still feel deep pain and loss that I don't know how to cope with. And I still lose friends, and I drop the ball, and I avoid confrontation and hard conversations, and I still mask and guard myself from others, and I still reach for tools and answers and sages that might have the cure for me and all my imperfections and my difficulties. Part of me holds on to the dream that it's possible to cure myself. And it feeds into the addictive cycle of healing, even when I'm burnt out and I'm craving a simpler life of just existing and living. When I just want to have a thought or a feeling or an experience and not examine it under the microscope. But I get stuck in the loop of healing and healing and healing, because there's a part of me that is addicted to believing that there's a cure. A cure to me, to my existence, to human existence. I don't know. But even after all of that work, all of the work I have done, I still feel like there's more. There's so much more. And I still struggle with all of this stuff. And it's a sobering thought. That's what's been sitting with me, because it's a sobering thought. I can hear that voice, that critical voice come up going, Hayden, you have done so much work. How are you still like this? How do you still struggle in this way and piss people off and struggle to apologize when you need to and have bad days for no reason? Get triggered over something that you have talked about in countless amounts of therapy sessions and you've honestly healed a lot of, but you still are triggered over it and it still feels just as painful. It's weird. It's dissonant. It seems confusing. Am I doing something wrong? What is all this work for? Will I ever reach the bottom? But the deal is, you and I are not a project to be completed or something broken to be fixed. And sometimes we do have to take a step back and just live life and enjoy, because that honestly can do so much more to address the things that we're working on in therapy than therapy can sometimes. Just by living and seeing, oh my God, I'm not broken. When I'm not constantly looking at myself under this microscope, looking for everything's wrong that can be improved. Wait, that's a word. When I'm not constantly looking for everything wrong that I can improve upon, I actually get a felt and lived experience of being whole and just perfectly fine as I am. So yeah, I'm not exactly sure how you take that break for yourself. But I know that it's not backsliding, it's just life. Embodying and not just saying that you are enough, and that you have a right to joy and fun and lighthearted pleasure and frivolity is so important. So if you don't want to journal, just don't. And if you want to take a break from therapy, talk to your therapist. If you need to pick up a fiction book or watch reality TV or not pull tarot cards for months at a time, do it. All of that stuff will be there for you when you need it, when you want it. But give yourself time to be with this new version of yourself who you've done so much work on and has so much more work to do, but is always perfectly enough. We have to hold those things together. That there's more, there's always more. You most likely are always going to struggle like I do. And it's enough. And maybe if you take a pause and you look around, you can really see how much you've grown and how much more joy you have the capacity for and how much deeper your relationships are and how, yeah, you still wake up with bad days, but not as many bad days as you used to. And you can notice and live in your house instead of just seeing all the dust in the corners and all of the things that aren't perfect, aren't fully done and fully complete, but just that it's good enough. It's clean enough. It's organized. It's nice. It's enjoyable to be here. So, yeah, there we have it. Please, I would love to hear if you relate to me. This brought a lot of deep reflection for myself. I think in a way that I really value at this point in my life. And so I would love to hear if you relate to anything that I said and how you find this balance. And yeah, find me over on TikTok at the Evergreen RX and on Instagram, same handle. And if this helped you, if you appreciated anything that I said, if you take a second to leave me a 5-star review, I really greatly appreciate it. And I will catch you guys next time. Okay, take care.